Thank you very much, Emily. Thank you, Strand Bookstore, for having me here in this wonderful city, and thank you for coming here because we have all something in common. We are all curious about this country. Also, jetzt weiß ich schon wieder nicht, wie es geht. So, I divided the book into 3 sections. I divided in section architecture, culture, and human beings. And I was driven by the idea to go to North Korea because it's the most secretive society we have on Earth, the most isolated country on Earth. Actually, we just know the face of Kim Jong-un and the military parades, but what do we know about the people who live there? There are 24 million people living, and we don't know anything about them. So maybe I would start, because it's an interactive book. My friend Xenia Markolan, she was also with me in North Korea, and she especially composed music. And our goal was to give more life to the content of the book, because when you see when you read the preface, there are some situations that you will see in the pictures in the book, and then you see the people suddenly moving. Aber ich weiß nicht, wie ich jetzt hinkomme. Okay. Weißt du, wie es laut geht? Ist nicht konnektiert. Wie macht man das? I just put the microphone here. Emily, could you give me a hand? We need to connect it to a loudspeaker, or I put the microphone on it.
You can put the microphone on it, actually. Try that.
Shall we try?
Yeah.
It doesn't, not loud enough. Or maybe I show it at the end of the show, and you can.
Yeah, we'll work on it while you're.
Okay. So I will show it at the end. So North Korea is different than the rest of the world. Like, all pictures have something in common. They are dominated by the absence. So if you see, for example, the scenery here, you will not see any restaurant, you don't see any food chains, you don't see any advertising, you don't even see any cars. The only thing what you see is like white public spaces with a few people. The architecture in North Korea is very exceptional and unique because during the war, this country got totally destroyed. There was nothing left. So they had the chance to reconstruct a country within very short time. And this architecture is like a pharaonic monument that affects the mind of the people. For example, here you see the typical communistic signs, but North Korea is not an international communist country, it is a national communist country, so they added the brush that symbolizes intellectual revolution. The circle stands for the unification between party, leader and the people. And you see the houses, they are symbolizing flames, and since there's no advertising, it's just like always propaganda, it says like solidarity. This is the border. That's actually the weirdest place I have been, because you see Where you see the stones, this is South Korea, and the other side is North Korea. And the blue house is built directly on the border. Within the blue house, there are two doors. One is going to South Korea, the other one to North Korea. And there you find a table. So both parties could sit on one table without leaving their own country. On the left, you see Chomilla. That's a horse that stands for the modern North Korea. Here on the right side, you see the stadium, the Mayday Stadium. It's one of the biggest stadiums in the world. On the left, you see the monument. The two North Koreas hold each other, and they dream about the unification. On the right side, you see the rocket. It's like you see a lot of fake rockets, but they sent a real satellite to space, and it was called Satellite of Love. Verstehen Sie, dass das Verarschung ist? And there's a huge gap between the capital Pyongyang and the province, and I will show you. This, for example, these are not billboards, that's propaganda. Here you see there's not a lot of electricity, but the dear leaders, they always bring light. And this, for example, is strange. I called this picture, I called Three Women Are Going Home. I don't know if you see them. But what's strange about this picture that there's not one single person on the balcony. Like outside of Pyongyang, you barely see any traffic. These are luxury apartments, and they are given for free to the inhabitants. At least that's what they tell you. The pyramid is the biggest house, the biggest building in North Korea. It should be the tallest hotel of the world, but it's empty until today. And this is typical for North Korea. You see a traffic officer managing imaginary traffic. Kaesong is the only city from North Korea that didn't get destroyed at the war, and this is like North Korea looked like this before the war. It didn't get destroyed because it was in the American section at this time. This is a typical scene for a cooperative on the countryside, and you have the slogans all over the country. The culture, I don't know if you heard about Arirang. It's the biggest mask games in the world. It even is in the Guinness Book of Records. This year it got cancelled, but it's incredible. It's the most crazy thing you've ever seen. There are over 100,000 participants moving simultaneously in waves. And I will show at the end, I will show you a trailer. You see the human beings, they look like pixels. And this is the entire picture. This is a Kung Fu parade because Kung Fu was invented in Korea. And Arirang is an old folkloristic song. It's a cultural DNA of both Koreas because the history of the Koreas is like a very old, it's over 3,000 years. And Arirang, that's how they call it, is a Korean Romeo and Juliet. As you see, Korea is the middle of the world, and it's a unified Korea. Here, the last ally of Korea is China, so they worship it. North Korea is different from the rest of the world. It's also because it's ruled by 3 presidents, 2 dead and 1 alive. On the right side, you see Kim Jong-il looking at things. And here he's looking at the rubber boots. So 10 years later, they became like a relic. You see a snake liquor, that's a typical drink there. And on the right side, you see an ornament of a magnolia. This magnolia, this flower, was created for Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. It's called Kim Il-sungia and Kim Jong-ilia. And it symbolizes love and wisdom. And you find it everywhere in the architecture. So if you see it, you always associate it with the dear leader, how they call him. It's an amusement park, and this, for example, is very, very modern amusement park in Pyongyang. So you have a lot of contrasts in this country. Here we are in the metro station. The middle is reserved, nobody knows for who. And the metro stations have names like Paradise and Golden Field and Reunification. They are like very pretty metro stations, a little bit like Moscow. And the tubes, they are from East Berlin. Here you see he's taking care that nobody takes the wrong stairs. So Pyongyang is becoming more modern. As you see, the women are even allowed now to wear trousers. That's new. And here, there are more rich inhabitants. As you see, they have plastic bags because normally people don't go to supermarkets. These people you call flowers of Pyongyang. They are the most. They are really like pretty police officers, and they are very popular there. It's one of my favorite pictures on the left side because normally North Koreans, they are really shy, and they look through you. But this girl, she was so curious, and she looked directly in the face. And I think the prejudices on both sides are very strong, but also the curiosity. The statues, you cannot take pictures like a part of the statue. You have to take the entire statue because it would be a lack of respect. So you are also not allowed to take pictures from behind. Women are totally equal to men there. They also go to military. This is like a shopping mall in Pyongyang. This picture I took in the film studios, and Kim Jong-un, he was like, sorry, Kim Jong-il, he was like a movie fan, and he came there over 10,000 times to visit the set, and he was like so angry that they were not so successful, so he kidnapped a South Korean film director and forced this person to produce 6 years long movies in Pyongyang, and finally he could escape. This is a morning, people are going to work, and there you see the gap between like Pyongyang and the countryside, you see. But then you see also like familiar scenes, for example, a couple getting married. So on the province, obviously there are like huge streets without any traffic, and I think it's the only country untouched by globalization. So you see the workers, they still work with the hands. And it's like the newest fashion in North Korea, and it really exists. There are a lot of inline skating children. These are the typical uniforms on the countryside for the workers. And here you see different means of transportation. Difficult to take pictures like this because normally they don't want you to take pictures of them, but in this case my friend, she was playing softball with somebody, so they were totally they were not concentrating on me. And here I met a major and he told me about the wall. And he said like South Korea still denies that there's a wall, but he showed me that it really exists. So there is propaganda on both sides actually. Here they call it the most dangerous border in the world, because it's still like in the state of a cold war that can become hot every moment. Normally in North Korea, when you go to a restaurant, you're nearly always the only guest. But the beer is excellent, they have really good beer. This is in a farmer's house. And here on the right side, you see like people having a picnic, because also in the free time they spend time together in a collective. They don't have the same individual thinking like we have here in the West. So this is like, I gave an introduction to the book. Now I really hoped it works with a trailer. And then I would like to answer some questions.
You may not remember that divided Germany, but you must wonder about the similarities must have occurred between divided Germany and divided Korea. Can you comment on any resemblances or differences?
When I was born, my country was divided, and it was divided actually between capitalism and communism. And it's a different situation because North Korea is a leftover, it's the last Stalinist country in the world, and they are more isolated than the DDR was. But yes, I know that it's possible, peaceful reunification could be possible because nobody thought it in the day the wall broke down, nobody thought it would ever be possible.
Could you describe what the process was of taking photographs in North Korea? Were you allowed to go around on your own? Were you chaperoned or followed by anyone from the state?
North Korea is different than the rest of the world, and I went there twice, and I was really lucky because once we were just 2 people in a car, and the second time we were just 4 people in a car, plus the guides. So
So you are controlled. When you arrive in the country, you have 2 guides and a driver. And the 2 guides, they are monitoring you, and the driver is also monitoring the 2 guides. So everybody is monitoring everybody all the time. And when we came there the second time, it was a very sensitive moment because North Korea dissolved the armistice agreement with Korea. So officially, the 2 countries were in a state of war. So there were no other foreigners, and we didn't have access to the outside world. We didn't have internet, we couldn't make a phone call, we were not able to watch television and read newspapers. So we were also isolated, also the visitors are isolated. And yes, you are monitored, and we knew, for example, we couldn't communicate within the group because we knew that our rooms, for example, are bugged. But I went over 3,000 kilometers through the country, and I'm not blindfolded. You see a lot, and you can take pictures, even though the guides, maybe they are not happy with it. But there is monitoring, I know, I'm totally aware of it, but you still see enough. Actually, I took some secret pictures, I guess 70% of these pictures are taken secretly, sometimes out of a bus, sometimes my friends talk to somebody, I took a picture, I always have my camera with me. But in some places you are not allowed to take your camera, but these are more the places for the dear leader.
Thank you. The photographs in the book are beautiful. They are lush and colorful. Unfortunately, these didn't show that way. But what it depicts, to me at least, is a much more wealthy country than we tend to believe North Korea is. Costumes, amusements parks, lots of architecture, clean streets, kids frolicking, skating, and so on and so forth. And in the West, we're used to seeing documentaries of kids that are poor and haven't eaten, and depraved situations with concentration camps and people escaping, telling of the horrors of that. So how do you reconcile your vision of North Korea and this kind of other vision that we are sold upon in the West?
I'm totally aware that it's provoking, but our vision was to start a dialogue, because the politicians, they stop the dialogue with this country, and you cannot isolate it more because it's already the most isolated country in the world. And we never saw a face of North Korean people, ordinary people, and they exist. I know it's just a glimpse, but they still exist. And my goal is that one day they will see our faces as well, and this is the beginning to open this country, to go there, to bring pictures back to the other world and get a debate started.
The video showed an image that I have not seen come out of North Korea very often in the remote kind of temple frame. And religion is not something I generally associate with North Korea. What role did you see religion have in that country when you were there?
Officially, they have freedom of religion, but for example, this monk you saw, before he prayed to Buddha, he called him Kim Il-sung, just in case.
Dancing with stars on television, and you're young, and I wonder what made you turn your attention to a country like North Korea first, and then I want to let people know that why you couldn't take pictures of other starving people, because North Korea geographically, I understand, very mountainous country, a lot of trees. Maybe they are all torn down because they're starving. They have to eat the bark sometimes. But I think they may be improving now. But that's why you could not even see that world. They were really starving, and I hope they don't. And one thing I would like to give hope to the world is that DMZ area has one of the largest forests in the world that's been untouched for decades. And all the biologists, all the naturalists who want to study the virgin land and do something with it for the humanity, I think the world should be welcome to be there and move all those miles and not let it not rust the earth anymore. The country is crying for attention, for the warmth. And I thank you for that. This is the beginning, I hope. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much for coming here. And I don't know, I'm speechless actually. This is what I saw. The war, I mean, the war is a difficult topic because Korea, the peninsular Korea, was always like an independent country until 1910 the Japanese colonized it. And then Japan lost the Second World War, so two world powers just took over Korea, but they didn't vote for it. And this is also the history. The history of Korea is like 3,000 years old. And this is just a little period what's going on now in North Korea, and I really hope that there will be a peaceful reunification, because the war never ended in North Korea in the head. They are still traumatized.
How dangerous was it as a journalist, as a photojournalist, for you to make the trip? How did the trip come about? And I know other journalists have been arrested and detained in North Korea for long periods of time and threatened with all sorts of terrible punishments. So what did you think about the risks before you went, and were there ways to sort of minimize the chance that you anger the powers that be?
As a tourist, I would recommend everybody to go there because it's very safe, and I would not recommend to do what I did. I went there as a journalist with a tourist visa, and it can have like really bad consequences. And while I was there, they were doing some research in Malaysia because the Secret Service was following us, and then they came and took our passports away. So actually, I didn't know if I can leave the country or not. And I know about the two American journalists who went to the camps. And yes, it was a risk.
I was actually going to ask something similar because I'm curious about the logistics. So they knew that you were a journalist?
No. And all the journalists have the same story. They don't do research within the country. I don't know if it's because they don't have internet or not. They started researching 2 days after the Secret Service discovered me in Malaysia. So all journalists, normally even from BBC, they don't do research before. You have to sign. You normally go through a travel agency, and then you have to sign that you are not a photographer, you will not take pictures, you will not publish pictures, and you have to sign this. So I think, I don't know, they believe you, I guess.
But you didn't consider going in with a different identity or anything like that?
This is really espionage. I mean, this is a capital crime in a lot of countries.
There's no chance of you returning?
Unfortunately, I am afraid that we are blacklisted now.
Do you happen to learn anything about the camps when you were there? And also, did they explain, or did you ask them why the city looks so deserted and why there are such few people in the car on the streets?
Like North Korea, they are isolated politically, also through the sanction, but they're also ideologically isolated because the Juche ideology is based on economic independence and self-sufficiency. They don't want to import. They want to be self-sufficient, and it's a communist state. They don't want to have like a lot of consumer goods. But this is like a different way of thinking, yeah. But I didn't see these concentration camps. Doesn't mean that they don't exist. I just didn't see them. And they normally, if you ask political questions, they are not so. They're getting nervous, or suddenly they don't understand your language anymore, and they find their ways not to answer. You bring them in really uncomfortable situations. For example, you cannot ask anything about the dear leader. Nothing. How old he is? Does he have a wife? Does he have children? It's taboo. You don't ask things.
Julia, on behalf of the Strand, thank you so much for coming to visit us and sharing your very important book. Thank you all for coming out tonight as well. We'll have Julia stick around and sign some copies of her book. Please feel free to check out additional copies in the back room. Thank you.